And
Yes,
so today
yes.
I read, we read a piece that's, it's really, every now and then I come across something and I'll think, oh, that is describing what I've been talking about. And because there's so much pointing to in what we do. And so Emmett is going to read, it's very long. We'll just do the first third and then we can talk about it and see if we want to keep integrating it or what we want to do.
This is by Michael Edward Johnson, who does work in trying to quantify consciousness. He wrote a piece called Hands and the Origin of Samsara. Part 1, Samsara. Blood vessels are wrapped in a thin ring of vascular, smooth muscle cells and are present nearly everywhere in the body. This makes the vasomuscular system our largest muscular system. Vasocomputation suggests that contractions of these muscles stabilize local neural patterns, which don't change until the tension releases.
It gets better.
The vasocomputation interpretation of samsara is that we all have many tiny areas of frozen sensations held in place by vascular tension. That would be what we call tumescence. And that these trapped patterns create suffering. Being able to freeze sensations is a superpower, underlying our capacities for imagination, planning, and language. This also enabled generalized active inference. We use what we know to predict what will happen next. These sensations are held stable as predictions until we take actions that match reality to prediction, at which point they release. One way to view the Buddhist critique.
One moment. So I just want to say, so you have a prediction. The prediction exists in this kind of grasping. Energy collects there. As soon as the prediction comes true, then it releases. Remember that, because we're going to talk about what happens if it doesn't.
One way to view the Buddhist critique is that this system is so powerful that we tend to overuse it. Habitual and chronic pattern stabilization has allowed us to dominate the world, but also warps epistemology and creates suffering. We live in stories about what our world should be, not what it is, and this is inherently a state of stress. In this formulation, samsara is the amount of frozen or stale sensation we carry around with us and is locked into place through vascular latches. A latch is essentially a locked section of smooth muscle that has engaged what's called the latch bridge mechanism to glue itself shut. Vascular latches are discrete, localized, and measurable features of anatomy. This is an extremely testable hypothesis.
Oh, then is the next line the hands part? I like that little part.
But why do humans have so many latches? Jaws, paws, wings, and tails are all useful.
Isn't that great? Jaws, paws, wings, and tails.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Jaws, paws, wings, and tails are all useful in different capacities, but hands seem special. Hands allow you to grab things, and once you grab something, it's yours.
Keep going. It's going to be this cool thing. Humans uniquely suffer.
Right.
Humans uniquely have hands. Humans uniquely can grasp. Grasping has been abstracted by the brain. And so then we grasp within the brain, and that grasping creates these pockets of locked energy that translate to suffering. We'll read more later, but that's a great start. I thought this is, well, I think it's so good because it's what I think. I think he's an absolute genius.
Yes, exactly.
But so yesterday we did what did I do yesterday? A summit. Jim Garrison hosted, and two of our scientists were on Dan Kriegman, and then there was a video of Dr. Andrew, and then Topeka Sam's incredible woman who is the founder of Loam, Ladies of Hope Ministry, who works with justice impacted women specifically. And here's what it was a profound call as well. I also thought he was a genius. He thinks much the way I do. No, but what I said what I said to him is, every now and then you encounter someone who can hear the same song you can hear. And you can tell that they can hear it because they say things that only people who have heard it can say. And so one of the things that he was describing, he was very fond of Eros. He was very fond of Eros. And what he really learned, heartfelt, profound activist as well, human being. But what he said, one of the things that he said was that we often perceive the world is created by our brain in a way that affects our body. And this is somebody who's heard the song knows this. But there are those of us who know that it's circulation, and that the body creates the brain as well. And we have only at this point in history, scientific history, are we looking at the science of how the body creates the thinking. And what we're discovering is it may be shocking. It may be that the body has far more effect on thinking than the brain. Just our guts alone have profound effect. But then when we hit this piece, humans have a unique access to suffering, and we have unique hands, and the hands grab, and could it be that this grabbing is what creates the suffering? And so I thought he took a really cool, he's also an AI guy, but he took a really cool stance. What do you think?
Oh, wow. I just, when Emmett sent me the prompt, I was like, okay. But then I got into it. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm starting to see how these things, and immediately, so my linguistic brain goes off, and I start thinking, okay, well, on the cognitive level, we can say, I grasp a concept, or I was able to, I grasped, or the concept, and we use these terms, cognitively, but I think much more we use them emotionally. So like we use like grasping at straws, or
I like that,
or like
gripped. I'm
gripped with fear, or and it was interesting. So then I, of course, realized that we are not quite unique as humans. I mean, there's primates also who have hands, but we're one of the very few who have like hands with thumbs. Ours are more opposable and usable, and the ability to use our hands is like more finely coordinated at this point in evolution than the rest of the apes, I guess. And so I was like, well, how do monkeys and other apes use their hands? And yes, it's primarily for gripping, mostly for climbing and swinging, right? And so when you said something about you're grasping onto something until it becomes certain, and then you let it go, but it's not with the same hand.
Right.
You're on one branch, you grasp another one until you're certain, and then you let that hand go.
Right.
And then.
Very good.
So
wow, you really went there.
Yeah.
You like this for somebody who wasn't so sure about this article.
I had
you really went there.
20 minutes to study.
So we never know where we're going, is what we determine. We just dance together. So but I do think we've been going so many places, and that this can lead us into. So what's cool about this guy is he's science, he's fundamental, we'll just say consciousness or Buddhist thought, and he's AI. And so he had a kind of intersection of where we are. Do you want to just view one more small section, and we'll see if anything sparks us?
So this section is transfer learning. One of my ex's favorite sayings was, as you do anything, so you do everything.
That's one of ours. That's one of ours. I love his ex.
Right.
It encapsulates evolution's basic strategy to reuse motifs from one domain in others. Put strongly, Animals' physical motifs and affordances will mirror their mental motifs and affordances, and vice versa. Birds have flighty temperaments. Sloths are mentally slow. Squirrels are adept at switching reference frames. These physical mental parallels seem obvious, priced into our intuition. The primate branch of the tree of life might be characterized by animals whose default interaction with the world is grabbing. Hands are so powerful that we have gotten a lot of evolutionary practice at grabbing physical things. It's our go-to affordance, much more so than any other animal. This probably makes us better at grabbing mental things too. Across evolutionary time, this assumption of affordance has bled over to our representations of objects, since we don't intrinsically make a distinction between objects and their mental representations.
So then one of the descriptions of enlightenment that I've heard from a Tibetan Buddhist friend of mine is that there's a river of karma. The river of karma is flowing, and I don't know why I always picture it flowing through through me. But so there's this river of karma that's flowing, and you don't reach for, and there's just thoughts and images and experiences and sensations. You don't block any of them. You don't ignore any of them. You don't grasp for any of them. And so when he says we're so good at grabbing or grasping, one of the things to keep in mind is there are ways that we exalt those behaviors.
Oh, absolutely.
And that might be against our better nature.
Well, I mean, the term attachment obviously
Right.
occurs in the Buddhist literature, I believe, and it's not that something is necessarily attached to something else. It's a verb. It's a habitual state of being, of like trying to attach to something.
Right.
And so I think that is a form of grasping.
I always think of that as velcroing oneself to something in such a way you're just so velcroed with it, you assume that's you. You identify with it, and then once you learn the trick of unvelcroing, you realize, wait a minute,
Right.
none of this is me, especially the shitty stuff. But really, seriously, I had a moment where I talk about klesha. So, klesha is a collection of energy. The energy, in a sense, takes on its own life. Almost, I don't like this word, but we'll just use it for today. Almost like an entity within you. And it's such that you believe that it's you. But it's just really this collected energy that has its own life form. And you come to see your klesha, the process of whatever it is, the process is of disillusionment that is also the process of enlightenment.
Right.
The process of disillusionment is having more gross level klesha, right? And then you progressively get to more and more subtle level klesha, and then you get to this instinctual level. At the instinctual level, you get fairly clear on what your unique karmic klesha are, what your unique karmic makeup is. And then how that has shaped, all of these trees that exist within you, right? And all of this network that exists within you, how it has informed that network, how it has distorted it, twisted it, congested it, all of that. And so you get into the real fun, because you can dismantle and take apart all of these inaccurate perceptions that you have, but you have to get down here, and it's hard to get down there because that's the stuff you don't want to see. So you get down there, and when I visited mine, mine is like it's some form of I didn't want to be here in the first place. Or like, I can't deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. It's a fundamental, it's in Buddhism, it's a fundamental ignorance, right? You want to ignore things. And so that I always joke, because my mom was 36 hours in labor and 2 weeks late. Like I didn't want to be here. I came here with this klesha, and I'm leaving here with this klesha. No. So you get down to that. that fundamental level, and then you can
Mhm.
begin to understand, how your stuff works. I don't know why I'm saying that other than
Mhm. No, it's something that I think on the conceptual level that you possess, but isn't you.
right.
And so I think that's the whole thing. Is
That's
that,
it.
it's easy to see that in our society and maybe in all societies, others' perception of us and our perceptions of ourselves are often based upon the things that we think we've grasped.
That's right.
Whether
That's
it's
so
our
good.
college degree, our ethnicity, our gender, our car, our house. Those over time become indistinguishable from me, right?
That's so right.
And then I guess what happens is that if something is sort of like clawed away, you think that a part of you has been taken, when it's just something that you chose to possess, or thought that you possessed.
That's it.
And
It's a place where the grasping happened, the
Mhm.
collection of energy happened, and then that
That
produced
identity.
the notion of an identity or an identification.
Right. And as Emmett brilliantly read, the minute you grasp something, you feel like you own it, right? So there is that cognitive relationship between, and even in law, possession is 99% of ownership.
Right.
And so but then taking it another level, ownership is still at a remove from identity, but I can see how it could easily bleed into identity. I own it, therefore I am it.
Right.
Right.
Well, well, that's part of what I was saying. When you get down to this fundamental klesha, it determines what you choose to Velcro to and what you choose to not Velcro to. And so there are people who choose to Velcro to material items as as an extension of their identity, right? What are they called? Identity, license plates, even, you know what I mean, like vanity license plates.
Yeah,
and
I love them.
so you become identified with the material aspects, and then there are people who work very hard to not be identified with the material aspects, and they use manic panic in their hair. And but one of the things that you come to see is the opposite of this identification is not being identified, is not being not identified with this. It's being free of identification, but it's not being anti-identified. Like the people who identify as anti-billionaires.
Right.
No, that's identity. And this
Mhm.
is what we worked on a lot in erotic justice, is identity is the punishment, no matter what the identity is.
Right.
If your if your identity is wealthy, if your all of that's a punishment. That is not a reward. That, because it's just it's like Kierkegaard. It's a more well-designed doghouse, but it's still, you're still living in the doghouse.
Right. But I think it's even more pernicious than like feeling like the doghouse is yours. It's like you're kind of imbuing a moral character onto your identity, and so I think that's where things get dangerous in terms of politics.
For sure.
In terms of, that type of thing, is like, okay, my identity confers upon me some sort of moral value.
Yes.
And that is where we get, and I think Martin Luther King was warning against that, when he advised African Americans at the time, do not accept Black power as an identity. It's worse than white power. And he was like very, very, very insistent on not doing that, because he said, then it will take away the work that you've already done in standing up and moving forward, because you didn't do that because you felt like you necessarily had the moral high ground. You built through work, through through the struggles and through the actual development of moral character, these opportunities. It's not the reverse. Like you.
And what I like, sorry, I want you to keep going, but what I like is that you exchange moral character for identity, is what I'm hearing. So it's almost like you have determined to have a strong backbone rather than a vanity face of what you are. And it's really, this is the only thing, the fortitude that will get you through.
Right. And so then, but the shortcut to that gets us to, I think, where we are today.
That's right.
Not just on Black people's part, I think society-wide,
Society.
identity politics.
My
is
ladies
like-
are doing it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
what I'm not
Mhm.
sure if this actually made it into
Mhm.
erotic justice, but outrage is the methamphetamine of our times. And much of what I see people being identified with is their outrage. And it's like that's the punishment,
Right.
and
Right.
it's so bonkers because
Mhm.
your outrage. I just saw this great
Mhm.
piece on how all anger is really a result of hurt or fear, we'll say.
Mhm.
And so you're
Mhm.
hurt. You see something unjust happening and you feel this hurt. And so you then adopt this outrage that then becomes an identity. And so
Mhm.
now not only are you hurting because you've seen something that was unjust, but
Mhm.
now you're locked in a cage with that pain.
Right.
That's how crazy it is. But, and this is
Mhm.
where the grabbing hand comes in.
Right.
If you tell somebody, let go of that outrage,
Mhm.
it's punishing you.
Right.
There's that
Right.
feeling that someone's taking something away from me. This
Mhm.
is all I have to do.
Mhm.
It's like this burning hot coal
Right,
is all
right.
that I have
Wow. Great
to
metaphor, yeah.
make up for how badly I'm hurting.
Mhm. So you white knuckle it, right?
White hot path knuckle it. Yeah.
So, you grasp, you hold on. I mean, I think it's also in resistance to change and you advised me a few months ago to start getting my head out of the sand. But that was part of it is that.
Well, I said we need you.
Yeah,
we need your mind.
But you were right. You were right.
Yeah.
I agree with you when you're right.
Thank
No,
you.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
But I think the main thing is like, we think we need something to hold on to. And I think you've had experiences that have told you that, no, you can exist in the whirlwind, really. Whereas
right.
I'm like, no, don't give me any psychedelics because, that's going to take me too far off the handrail that I'm gripping,
I understand. Trust me.
Mhm.
My legal situation. Had I not done psychedelics, I just did an interview. I can't remember when, but
that's the psychedelics.
I've been doing a few.
Mhm.
But the question was, how are you making it through this?
Mhm.
And I said, oh, without question, it's from my practice, and it's from, I didn't, but I thought. And it's from having done psychedelics
Mhm.
that I can understand that you can be in the middle of a seemingly disastrous experience and still have a fundamental sense of joy. That's directly from those two elements. And that's
Mhm.
because you step beyond fixity of ideas.
Mhm.
The intrinsic in this experience, that's what happens is, all of a sudden you watch all of your very tight fixed experiences just become these fractals of light. And you're like, well, wait a minute. And you literally try to grasp for the reality and you can't grasp it. It's so great. You go to grasp for your cup and all of a sudden it melts in your hands, and so you have much of a less of a grasp on life, and then you learn, oh my God, I've just been squeezing myself to death.
Right.
That's all that's happening. Something seemingly terrible happens out there, and so then I just start squeezing, and then I'm just squeezing myself to death and saying, that's so painful. No, that's just that essentially doesn't even exist. This is painful. I was thinking about this today, or the day before yesterday. I was walking down the street and this woman, I don't know. I don't know. Do you listen to NPR?
Yeah, it's like I grew up like an NPR junkie.
Well, I used to love NPR, so
I know I can anticipate the critique, but go ahead.
I have to admit, I am no longer. I'm a balanced lady, but it's to my mind, it's very chastising. And that's what I just can't. I can't take it. I can't even take that voice in my own head from me to me. Much less from some woman with sensible shoes and like curly gray hair that doesn't. Anyway, so one of those women, I was walking down the street.
My parents live less than a mile from NPR.
Okay. Oh.
And so I see them coming home from work, and that is exactly.
I know who they
Yeah,
are.
they
I
do have the
know
sensible
who you
shoes
are.
and the hair. And all that. Yeah.
I like Peace
Mhm.
Foods in New York, and they have, they have really nice gluten-free desserts. And so I go there sometimes, but it's like, no, I got to get it to go. It is too NPR. So anyway, so I'm, I'm walking down the street, and I got some stuff happening, and I'm looking good, and this woman, this NPR lady, just looks at me and just goes. And I thought, I have never seen a sexual person chastise somebody. There is a way that if you're going to have an identity, if you're down at the bottom of the barrel, you can afford to welcome everything. At least you don't have to give your commentary on everyone's nipples. You can just kind of walk down the street and enjoy it. Anyway, that's my thought on that particular identity.
It's interesting because for the longest, I mean, literally, like, how some people have like Fox News on. I once had this writing assignment, and this guy who I was working with, we just met for the first time. We're both working on the same project. Oh my God, like he chain smoked and drank whiskey from like morning till he passed out sometime at night. Wow. But he was a brilliant writer, but he insisted on having Fox News on all the time. And I thought the smoking was going to be the worst part, but it was the constant drone of something in my ear. Whereas for him, it was just ambient noise. Whereas for me, I kept on hearing, and then I realized, you know what? NPR has been my ambient noise like my whole life. I mean, literally, like my mom plays in the car, it's on at home at all times. When I walk in my mom's house, I know she's home because NPR is on, and that's just what she
Look,
does.
I hit a hot spot.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and I grew up with those, just with those, like that type of. I just thought it was regular. Like some people will say, oh, it's almost like identity politics, right? And I think the presumption with identity politics is that white people don't have identity politics.
That's right.
Is that it's just culture. Anything that you're saying is identity politics. But it's like when Megyn Kelly said, "Oh, of course Jesus is white." Like it was almost like what,
Yeah. Right.
So it was like, but I think that's the attitude. It's this ambient noise, this whatever you think is standard.
Oh, that's so good.
Thing, right?
That's really good.
Yeah. And no, that was it. It's just
it makes me think of Chris Rock. I said some of the best stand-up he's ever seen is Christian evangelists. And he said, if you want to see how to do a great stand-up show, watch Joel Osteen or watch, who's my other guy? TD Jakes.
Oh yeah.
And so that's how I started watching them. It was actually from Chris Rock. He he converted me. But I started watching all of them. I started watching this. I don't remember. They're very dramatic, is what I can say. But I watch them often, and then I would notice, one has a certain tenor. Like Joel Osteen has more the NPR tenor, and then TD Jakes has more the Fox News tenor. And so different times I would be in different moods and listen to him. Anyway, that's how I feel. I feel if you want to know great stand-up, then watch network news, because you will see such. I don't understand how people, including, by the way, NPR, how people watch or listen to these things and don't see them as entertainment. Like I don't have, that's it. Like if I see them as entertainment, I'll think, oh, that is so interesting. Oh, look at how they packaged that idea. Oh, it's it's such a clear packaging, and oh, that one's so funny. And Rachel Maddow, or Tucker Carlson, with he's got a cute new haircut. And so you can if you watch it from entertainment, it's fantastic. If you're trying to get any actual information.
And even worse, if you're letting it drive your emotions that you're grasping at something, right? You're grasping at some concept, right? The whole goal is to make you grasp at something. Fear that something's being taken away from you. Your citizenship is being taken away by immigrants. Your equality is being taken away by racists. Your whatever. So it's like, it's getting you to like have some kind of emotional reaction. Whereas if you have entertainment, I think that just breaks it up. Of course, laughing is an emotional reaction, but it's more freeing than, like anger or any of the graspy ones, right?
And back, that brings me back to, As far as I can tell, that's where I came up with, you know, if religion is the opiate of our time, then outrage is the methamphetamine. And because I just was watching, and you have to know, some of these things I did not even care about. I didn't care about, and I'm watching, and I'm just fuming, and I'm ready to go to a protest for a politic I don't even understand. To be honest, I understand politics really well, but at that point, it was just such passion. I realized, oh, that's what they're doing, and it's here we go. You're gonna like this transition.
What?
It's just like in because what tends to happen is that when people stop feeling, when a woman feels, when a certain spot is overstroked on her clitoris, then what most people do is they stroke harder in order to get sensation. But the instruction is to do the exact opposite, because if you stroke harder, then you actually create numbing, right? And so then you have to stroke harder. So you habituate to harder strokes for less sensation. And so the instruction is, as soon as you feel numbing, you lift your finger, move to another spot. But if you do come back, then you stroke very lightly to evoke sensation and re-enliven or reawaken. The network news has not figured this out.
Right. Well, I think it's purposely designed to get us to grip something. It's designed to elicit emotions that create, I would call them non-strategic decision making.
Say more, because that's excellent.
And that happens right after the scene cuts and goes into the commercial. So you're already primed to make a non-strategic decision, and then Colgate pops up, and then whatever. Yeah,
that was good. So, you guys like that one? Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
And so I think it's designed in that way. And then you're just going to pay enough attention. And this is old TV. I guess now new TV does ads in a slightly different way, in the sense that they know people can turn it off or switch or fast forward it, and so they've done it in a little bit of a different way. But I think that's the vestige.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I saw this. I think it was the Babylon Bee, but it could have been the Onion, one of the two. And it said, even reporters have no idea why they're still running the Gene Hackman story, and they're running it because people are fascinated by the gruesome nature of it, and that's why it continues to be a story, because it's not a story. It's, in and of itself, it's really not that interesting. It's just gruesome, and so you get that kind of heavy pressure hit, and at this point, people need heavy pressure in order to feel anything. So you can't have any kind of nuance. You can't have any kind of humor. You have to have the nervous system on lockdown.
Absolutely.
And so all of the experiences that would have you feel alive and good, those are, you can't have them.
Yeah, I mean, you start out sort of like using your hands, dexterously, right? Whether it's for writing, whether it's for gesticulating or thumbing your nose at society. and then they indict you, and then you grip everything. You stop using, what the fine motor coordination that you were given through years of evolution and thinking and human thought, the things that we traditionally associate with the more dexterous use of the hands.
That's right.
Obviously, we can use them for gripping and grasping and carrying and swinging and all that. But I think mostly what, the advances, I think, in human development come from using the hands in different other ways, whether it's typing, whether it's writing, whether it's playing an instrument, whether it's, pontificating.
That's right.
I notice your use of hands is very, conducting.
When I had media training, the woman said to me, "Would you please keep your hands in your lap?"
Right.
I said,
"Sure."
But that's because I'm alive.
Right.
And I'm animated, and animated, alive, and aroused is threatening in a world of lockdown, shutdown, and grasping. And so you look like a freak if you're not grasping. What about that?
Well, yeah, because if you're not grasping while everyone else is holding on for dear life, then obviously it kind of appears as if, one, you're not making a rational decision about your safety.
That's right.
Or two, that you are under the under the control of some sort of like madness, right?
That's right.
Sort
That's
of
it.
like, you
That's
know,
good.
like, I mean, just on the subway, I've been riding it a lot lately.
Yeah, quite a few subway stories.
Yeah. So like, everyone's like, when the thing break, when it slows down and like it could do so suddenly, like everyone's kind of holding on. There's always someone who's like falling down or like running around, and you're like, what are you doing, right? So yeah, I think that's the that's the purpose. Is
Okay, well, listen to this.
What?
So we used to have this center, and this wonderful rabbi came in, and he was so wonderful, and I had such a mystical experience watching it, like a real mystical experience, at where like I wasn't Jewish. I sit down, and he's talking. I think you may have been there. I sit down, he's talking, and all of a sudden he looks over at me, and we zoom in on each other, and then we're the only two people in the room. I wasn't even on psychedelics. And then he starts laughing, and as he laughs, we're elevated. And then I'm thinking, I have this thought, like, I don't know this man. And I'm so intimate. And then he laughs more, and then that breaks open, and then we like come down. So I took that as a sign that I was supposed to convert to Judaism. I went on this Jewish tour, and I went and I bought all of these books, Kabbalah included, Rabbi Cooper, and then Zalman, anyway, and then the third one was Marcia Prager, and she wrote a fantastic book. And so I went to meet her. I just said hello. By the way, I had the same experience in Christianity. I went to meet all the. That's how I move. I move like a crazy woman, and but this story is going to tie into your story. And so I'm sitting with her, and I said, I don't, as per usual, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was just moved. I had to go to Philadelphia to meet her from California. I was just moved to meet you, and I don't know if you have any wisdom for me, but I'm called to Judaism. And she said, you figured something out. And I said, what? And she said, there are people who ride the subway by gripping to the handrail, and there are those who surf.
Wow.
And I said,
yes, there are.
Yeah, exactly.
And
she said, it's in the long run, the ones who surf are the ones who end up standing.
Right.
And I like that. You're not at the will of something outside of yourself. It's your own coordination that moves you.
Right. Your own ability to maintain some kind of equilibrium when everything else is, falling down around you. And I think that goes back to this whole core thing, in that, like, I know what kind of my reaction to it would have been, right?
What would it have been?
I mean, to grip the grass.
I like how he says that, like, duh, Nicole.
Yeah. They would have definitely had to search me in the courthouse.
Yeah.
So, and then the other way of doing it, which is kind of like to celebrate it, to bring it into limerence with your identity, but I do think there's a danger, though, in that we tend to ascribe these like human-like qualities to people who are just operating under their titles.
Yes.
They're not really operating. I'm not saying they're not human. Of course they are. They're human. We can see their humanity. But we're like looking at them saying, oh, well, like, she's frumpy, she's this, she's that. But really, that's not really what's going on here. They're playing a role.
She's on a small spectrum of behaviors within the institutional potential.
Within this institutional potential. Right. So if I use the word, I think I used the word anthropomorphize. Right. But I should have said romanticize. We want to romanticize this process. Right. But it's not really a romantic relationship.
No.
In the sense that, like, there's no aspiration here. It's only people who feel like, now you may be playing an infinite game, but they're not.
No.
So
but that's the game.
Yeah.
The game is, the Buddha met Mara, the god of deception, and the god of deception comes in, all of these forms, comes in, armies that attack, comes in luscious ladies that seduce, and comes in the form of doubt about his own enlightenment, right? And so that's how I look at these institutions. They're Mara, but they're very compelling Mara.
Right.
The same
Of
way,
course.
the slings and arrows that were coming at the Buddha were compelling, and the aim is to have it not be so compelling that you flinch. That is the game. Or did you see this movie Bliss?
No, I did not. I may have. I don't know.
Quite good.
Okay.
Quite good. And I'll give you one portion of it. I won't give the whole movie away, but they're going down the street, or no, they're roller skating. I think they're roller skating. And the woman says, the guy's new to this realm of bliss. And the woman says, knock that one over. And the guy says, excuse me, knock that one over, knock that person over. And then somehow it happens that the person gets knocked over and you see that it's just a weird morphing energy. That one wasn't a person. There are only so many people. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's true.
Right. And I think that like, once you stop sort of like romanticizing people who have like institutional roles, because that was part of my process that you asked me to do, to get my head out of the sand. So I had to stop like seeing this like orange thing, like, you know, with like glowing teeth, like shouting all the time. Donald Trump.
I understand. And
I was like, okay, well, what role is this person? What role is this? Right. What how does this operate within this institutional structure at this time and at this place? What purpose is it serving? And so then it sort of like sapped all the emotion out of it. I was romanticizing, you know, that's like when people call people Nazis and Hitler and all that.
Brilliant.
And like, yeah, and the person, you know, in the role probably lives it up to like amplify that.
Right. That's exactly how it works.
Right?
You're giving it power.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. And so like, once you do that, I think that you then start to have, it can be more functional. Like, I'm not saying romanticize, but like, know that you're doing it. Right.
Yeah.
You know, don't perceive it as reality. That's my
I think it's brilliant. Yeah. No, I think in the same way that taking on an identity is punishment, projecting an identity is disempowering.
Absolutely.
And so it's punishment as well. You think you're harming the person. You know, this is an old Al-Anon thing. You point one finger at me and 3 are coming back at you. But use it. So you think you're punishing them with your projection, whatever it is, Nazi, fascist. No, you're the one who's being punished. That's the crazy thing. It does nothing to them.
Right. And you're being punished because you're not seeing reality. So you're making decisions based on a projection or an image that's not real. And so you keep making mistakes in the real world because all you see is the projection.
So good, Omari. And that's the place where, you know, our Drupon talks about when you really begin to see karma, you aren't seeing here. You're seeing down at the level of energies. And you did you actually did a karmic deep dive extraordinarily well, because you said, I'm not going to relate to this person. What is the energy that's operating? He describes it like a sommelier who can, as opposed to just a Thunderbird drinker. And the sommelier will say, oh, this grape, there was a drought 2 weeks in, and the soil was lacking this. And that's how you're looking at karma. You know, so you don't care about you don't care about the label on the bottle. You don't care. None of those things are going to tell you about the history of what created this flavor. And so when you take that layer off of what you're considering as important in the dynamic, what is this energy of this orange orb? What is this energy doing? What is it here to do? And how can I foster it doing what it's here to do?
Right.
And do whatever needs to be done to have it not be what it's what is its dharma is the question.
It's here, so it's here to do something.
Right. I agree.
So
I agree.
I think you just start there. Right?
I've been saying this.
You know, it's here. But I just think that was such a great point about not getting drunk off the illusion. That's even, I mean, I think there it goes. It's like, you know, I was trying to grasp it, like, okay, you're not seeing perception. It's even worse than a misperception. It is like a I don't know. It's a lack of continence. I mean, you're becoming, you know, unhinged. You're stumbling around. You're not. you're off your center,
This has been my argument with my liberal family for since probably 2010 is when I started seeing this veering, and it's like it's heartbreaking to see people stumbling in this way and to want to say, no, you got to get sober. We have work to do. We have things to do.
Right.
And
you got to get sober.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you know, just don't watch the, don't watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I just feel like that's the, you know, it, and, you know, I guess you can be in the grips of an addiction, right? Right. To grasp onto something. I mean, I don't really have a lot of metaphors for addiction, but I do understand it as a grip. It either has a grip on you or you're gripping on something. Right?
Very
it's
good.
Like you're because you're making decisions that like will actually move you further from actual happiness or joy or stability, because in the moment you're trying to stave off some sort of like perceived pain or hunger, right? And those things, like, you know, those are the things that I think that, you know, the grasp hands
Right.
do. But it's not the only thing that hands do. I mean, hands reveal, hands, you know, do a lot of things. I mean, hands stroke.
They do. Right. And back to the addiction piece, I think, you know, Ram Dass has said it's not that you want too much, it's that you don't want enough. And so the addiction impulse, it's a fantastic impulse. It's just plugged into materiality, into the world of appearances. But if you plug that into what's called bodhicitta, get out of suffering, causes of suffering, help others get out of suffering. If you plug it into that aim, then it's like it has enough space to fully express, and it's not grasping. It's a profound force. It's the only force actually strong enough to have you break through the illusion of reality. The force of addiction is, but it's just plugged into the wrong thing, and it's just difficult to unplug it.
Right. Wow. So and that's where I think this kind of like fever pitch social dynamic we're in right now. It's like, I mean, we're more plugged in than ever. I mean, I'm plugged in right now, like trying to read my notes. I'm like, we're like, you know, at all times. I mean, it's like 24/7. I mean, at least in the past, TV used to go off, right? At like a certain time. Now it's always on, always something to do, always stimulated, you know, from morning to night on the morning run. Like you don't even hear the birds anymore. And I was like, realized that I was on my run the other day.
Wow.
And it was like a beautiful day. And like people were running. This is in Central Park, Saturday, and towards the afternoon, you know, after the rain cleared up. It's like a beautiful day. People are out. I'm doing my run. I have my headphones in. I'm like, and I see all these birds. And it wasn't until like 2 miles in that I realized I did not hear a single bird. So I took the headphones out.
I love this story. I love that story.
So I was like, you know, this is the problem. Like I said, we're addicted. And it's like all of us. It's not just the person who uses some kind of substance or whatever. It's the habit of not being able to be quiet.
Well, it's a habit of being taken. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to have our attention grabbed and in a unidirectional way. Like the thing about media is that it's coming at you, and so the brain goes passive, and so you're entraining the brain to remain passive, a passive recipient, not to going back to the Martin Luther King piece, not to develop the moral character that can stand, but to you know, to lie down for whatever's coming at you and to take it. And so then there's that feeling, you know, I think where everybody's at, what's so funny is I'm not going to take it anymore, right? But we keep taking it.
Right. We do. So it's like you have the moral outrage, which then substitutes itself from the work. You know, it's like the outrage is it. That's all you do. You show up at the Tesla dealership. You don't build a Tesla yourself and like.
No.
You know?
That's right. That's right. You wouldn't have time for outrage if you did.
Right.
And I think
and it wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you would have expended the energy through creativity, right? And you keep pointing to something that I'm just going to mention for anybody who hasn't heard, the idea of what's called the near enemy. So the the far enemy of love is hate, but the near enemy, the thing, the imposter that makes you think you're getting the real thing, is pity. Right? You feel like, oh, but then there's still self in there, and you have a sense of superiority, and then you have a sense of you're the savior, that you're the righteous one, and so and then you call that love or charity or something of that nature. And so what you're describing is great, rather than the work. Because the nearer enemy is always the no work version. Rather than the work of developing moral character, we are substituting that strong feeling with outrage.
Right.
And that's the place where it makes you think complaining makes you think you're doing something.
Right.
You sit there, you're just complaining. And then you're like, I solved all those problems. But I addressed that. That's what it makes you feel like you're addressing an issue, and you're not. You're being engulfed by the issue,
and you're being undernourished. And I think that was your original message, you know, which was that, you know, you're substituting all this like sugar high for real joy, like whether it's sexually, whether it's, you know, in terms of your creative life, or, you know, those type of things. And like, everyone wants to climax, but no one learns how to orgasm, right? So
that's why we call it the Omari West show.
No, this is 5 years later or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's so good. He was right when he said he's good, huh?
Right. But you know, it took me years to kind of understand the distinction.
But when you develop Omari.
Right. Well,
yeah.
What happened? Yeah. Well, you know, every other Monday. It seems to work out.
I think we're 2 Mondays in a row. Aren't we? We had a hot Monday last week.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Well,
thank you.
Where it gets too high.
This was wonderful.
That was fun.
Yeah.
If you have a reflection, go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom, or you can send one in on the chat if you are online somewhere, and we will start with Catalina. You're on mute still. One moment.
I love those walls.
Beautiful.
So, Nicole, it has been years that I would say you're singing my heart song, but that makes it sound like you've been putting your arm around my shoulder gently, and we're just skipping down a country lane and the grass is on this side.
Wow.
And it has not quite been that way. It feels more like we're in the field, and every single day you're wrestling me down to the ground and putting me in a headlock and holding me there until I'm wrestling myself, you know? Yeah. And I thank you.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, so I just was saying to someone who is a very elegant queen, that we have a certain kind of relationship, and I said, but you have to know I'm a pirate queen.
Wow.
So I am clear we are each other's people. You labeled it the exact way I see it and feel it, and it's an honor and a pleasure.
And of course, it took another Southern Italian irreverent woman to like do this for me. And I thank you very much.
From the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you.
So
Hannah?
I wanted to reflect. Whoops, could I finish?
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
I wanted to reflect on how this was started today on the fascia, the muscles, the emotions. This is a dive I've been doing for about 6 years is this deep fascial work. And as I got deeper and deeper and deeper into it, I was realizing how much it was controlled by our thinking, our emotions, all these things. And I noticed with time, there's not just the grasping, the grabbing, the gripping, but even the moments before that, it came to me that we're bracing.
Yes.
And the bracing, if you can stop it there, it's even more effective to relax at that point. And then the whole process is so much smoother. And in the meantime, your fascia is smoothing out, and yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. I was talking to my Lama friend, and we were talking about how do you make it through difficult times that are the difficulties repeat, we'll say. So, like we'll say somebody who has a diagnosis, and in the diagnosis, they have to keep going to the hospital. And how do you not brace in that experience? And he said something great. And he said, you operate like a samurai who's in the forest, and you maintain a certain awareness that danger does exist, but absolute confidence in your system. And I liked that because it took that sort of lock of fear out of it. And yes, bracing is exactly, I agree with you.
And of course, oming is the perfect practice to practice, but also just in every exercise, in every exchange you have with people, because they're just constantly throwing things out, right? That you would need to brace against.
Yes.
So you just catch it all day long down to your fascia. And they're doing this new research with fascia, is realizing it's more like structures made of snot. And it changes, and it makes these crystalline shapes that kind of get locked when we get locked. But as soon as we soften, they like change shape, and they're allowed to release their old form and restructure. And you can feel it when you go. Right now I have the last 5 weeks I've had a really intense practice because I have a pinched nerve. So I've been dealing with all this pain, and so I go into the stretch that hurts, and then I start relaxing everything. And when I get through my whole body, it's like you feel the structure changing and the pain reducing, and it just shifts your whole state of mind and body and everything. It's really a perfect.
No, it's absolutely lovely because you transmitted it to us. I think we got a little taste of how it feels. Thank you.
Lorraine?
Hi. Every time I tune in, I always have either a new or deeper insight, and aliveness in the body is something I heard that I really wanted in listening to one of your previous talks. And one of those moments of deeper realization I have was when you said about heavy pressure and how it numbs. And how much, being animated and alive has you punished in some ways. And so that
that was a tricky insight. That's do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
To how moving, did she say what I thought she said? Moving out of it has you punished in some ways. That is extraordinary realization. Like that is a whole talk's worth of unpacking, because you walked into the resurrection. You walked into the coming back to life that is so threatening in a world that isn't living. That's exactly how I think it works.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Omari, I wanted to say something to you too. I just always I like how you keep the conversation alive with your approval and curiosity and insight.
Thank you so much.
And tricky play.
I try to keep up a little bit.
May?
Hi, hopefully you can hear me clearly. I'm coming at you from inside a hyperbaric chamber.
Oh.
And so I've not been on camera because I've had my mask on, and it's been a meta experience with where you started the conversation today. I felt like the conversation met me somewhere in my own system, in my own body. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Truly.
I'll leave it there for today.
Yeah. Received. Thank you.
Wendy.
Wendy, my lady.
Thank you. I tuned in late, so I missed the first part of the conversation, but I came in right around the time you were talking about the body really creating the thoughts, and then the whole rest of the conversation that followed, and it made me so first of all, thank you. I think that's so accurate, but it sent me down a path of how we can change our thoughts by our posture.
Yes.
By how we use our backbone, whether that backbone is speaking out, which you've encouraged me to do, adding my voice to the conversation. I have to tell you, I've been doing more of it with your encouragement. Yeah, it's been good. And yeah, anyway, I haven't been punished quite yet, but
Awesome.
You missed out. Let me tell you.
I will, I'm sure of it. Anyway, I was thinking about posture, and so extending beyond the hand of how we can affect our state of mind. And then it made me think about how we are so disconnected from nature. And our bodies are our nature, which is what's so profound about oming, actually, to tune into the miracles of the body and our states of mind. And then what Omari, you were talking about, the birds, the trees, the ground, the grass, that as the culture in some ways continues to have us more and more separated from nature, we grip, we're not connected to the benevolence of nature. Nature became something threatening, bacteria and disease. There's tremendous, like the world is big enough to hold all of this. But if I just see my New York City apartment in my view, I'm gripped and grasped and in this, it's squeezing. It was the word squeezing, I feel. But when I go for a walk in the forest, I'm benevolent. I have a benevolent response, and so I don't really have a question, but just a gratitude, a thank you.
Beautiful.
The tuning into the body is sort of critical to the food also. Like the food we eat is just critical to the attachment to nature versus,
Profoundly agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's another just gratitude.
See, you did it again, though. It's like you came on, and in Zen they talk about the particulars. Zen's very about the particular. That's the only place you can actually feel and know is in the particular. And you brought these very specific particulars, and then all of us got wrapped in this forest bath from what you brought. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's really wonderful having these talks to be reminded who we are.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so fortunate every day, pretty much.
And we got one from Instagram from Kaylee. The flinching causes the bleeding. I wrote a piece on this years ago now. Deeply affirmed always in these conversations. The play between Nicole and Omari is always so invigorating and expansive.
Thank you.
It is. Thank you. Okay. So tomorrow I won't be here, but Wednesday I should. So if you are going to come on Wednesday, I look forward to seeing you. If not, I enjoyed you today. Thank you.